Welcome to the 12 Report with Blessings Mosugu, and these are the headlines. Well, gaps in the pension wall as Labour's deadline triggers federal shockwave. Oleg Synegubov sworn in as pension chairman after government backs down. Nigeria strikes back, foreign cyber terrorists and Ponzi mastermind forced out in sweeping EFCC-led dragnet. And finally, terror unleashed in eastern Congo. Islamic State-linked militants slaughtered 9, ransacked Oicha in night of fire and blood. We also have our reporters stationed in different parts of the country. We've got Sagir Ibrahim joining us from Abuja. We also have Israel Ife-Robo who will be joining us live from Lagos. We've got the details in a moment. Now to the stories. We begin this afternoon's news with a major development in the labour sector. The federal government has bowed to pressure from organised labour, appointing Oleg Synegubov as chairman of the National Pension Commission Board following a 7-day ultimatum issued by the Nigeria Labour Congress. Now, in a related move, the government has announced it will cease deducting workers' compensation funds after the NLC accused it of diverting 40% of contributions meant for the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund. The NSITF admits that deductions were made under a federal revenue policy, but insists that the funds were not diverted, adding that some of the money has already been returned. Now, despite these actions, the Nigeria Labour Congress remains firm in its demands, calling for a full refund of the deducted funds, a complete reconstitution of the PENCOM board, and greater transparency in the management of workers' contributions. Now, the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission has announced plans to commence a review of Nigeria's revenue allocation formula. The announcement was made during a press conference in Abuja, where the Commission briefed the public and key stakeholders on the forthcoming exercise. RMFAC explained that the review is part of its constitutional responsibility to periodically determine how revenues are shared among the 3 tiers of government. We now cross over to our correspondent Sagir Ibrahim, who joins us live from Abuja with more details of this development. Sagir Ibrahim, why is this revenue formula review necessary at this time?
Good afternoon, Blessings. The revenue formula review is necessary at this time, importantly because the federal government is trying to review, the allocation architecture, if we want to call it that, to ensure equitable distribution of funds from the federal government down onto the local government. So you would recall that there have been a variety of developments within this space. Talk about constitutional amendment, which is currently on the way, of the passage of bills and act amendments, for example, to the Electricity Act that now allows for state and even local governments to now generate their own power. Now, all of this development is what the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission has captured and championed it necessary, to start this review of the allocations, of course.
So the RMFAC has stated that the review is part of its own constitutional responsibilities, right? What constitutional powers does the RMFAC rely on to carry out these exercises?
As a matter of fact, the chairman of the commission had mentioned that, of course, it is in line with constitutional provisions, particularly Section 32B, Part 1 of the 3rd schedule of the Constitution. This enables the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission to, from time to time, review the allocation formula for the government. Now, as a matter of fact, at the moment, there is what they call the vertical and the horizontal formula. Vertical of which captures allocation to the federal, state, and local government, and then the horizontal formula which captures the movement of funds from the state government to the local government. They had mentioned that the entirety of this allocation formula is what is going to be reviewed and will be carried out between this time up until December this year. So we might most likely be seeing a new allocation formula from the previous, which used to be 52.68% for the federal government, 26.72% for the state government, and also 20.60% for local government. This is what the figures are at the moment, and this is the figures that are going to be reviewed with expectation that maybe states will get more, maybe local government will get more, but from whatever happens, the expectation is more monies will be going to the state following the declaration of this review.
All right, Sagiru Ibrahim right there from the FCT giving us an update on the revenue formula allocation review. Thanks for that. Now, the people of Okwaja, a coastal community in Lagos, are crying out for help as the relentless Atlantic Ocean continues to threaten their homes and their livelihoods. Just a year ago, Okwaja was a vibrant community, attracting families and tourists alike. Today, it's a scene of destruction and fear. As powerful waves tear through properties day and night, residents blame ongoing land reclamation projects such as the Eco-Atlantic Development and the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road for worsening the erosion. Now, experts warn that only expensive protective barriers can contain the surge. Locals are now pleading with government to act urgently before the community is lost totally to the sea. We can now cross live to our correspondent Israel Iferobo, who's standing by at Okwaja as we speak. Israel, where are you exactly, and can you give us the details of how dilapidated the area is?
Well, blessings, good afternoon to you. And, well, you could say that on a Monday afternoon, I'm at the beach, but not for fun, not for leisure. It's indeed to hear the cry of a community who are actually in pains and fearing for their lives. I'm at Okwaja community here in Lagos State, where the ocean surge in this area is indeed causing a lot of people to panic. That's the word. They are panicking. Now, on this coastline here, if you can see exactly what we're showing you, on this coastline here, there are homes, there are houses, there are families, there are businesses, and all of these people here are crying for help towards the government. I have someone here who is a manager of one of the businesses here in this area. Let him quickly tell us exactly what has been happening here today. Mr. Chidi, thank you for joining us. This is News Center TV. What exactly is going on? Face the camera, please.
All right. The water have been taking over our business for years now, and the community people, the business owners have wrote to government and asked them to aid them and help them to break the wave so that the livelihood could be saved. But so many attempts to talk to government, but they haven't done anything yet. This place used to be a very large land that people come with families to have fun on weekend, on vacation, but now it's becoming a death trap for families and people who come here to have fun at the beach.
How long has this been going on?
It's been going on for years now, like more than 2 to 3 years now.
The water that we see right now, where was the level of this water before?
At the center of the ocean there. That's where that's the level of the water before the center of the ocean. And before then, I've been like every year, this water keep on coming 1 meter, 3 meters every year. So it happens every year.
So what we are experiencing right now, the water that we see, almost getting close to my feet here, wasn't like this before.
It used to be.
Like this before.
It wasn't like this before. It wasn't like this before. It used to be calm and enjoyable. And
how much have your management used now to try to put this embankment that we see around here to push away the water?
I've spent millions of naira. I've spent like millions of naira, and we keep on spending. The only way this thing have not affected the building because I've been spending some money buying this sandbag to make sure the water doesn't take over the building. You can see, if you can see the camera, if you can see the building, you can see the foundation of the building. I've been threatened. You know, anything could happen. Customer could be there and the building could fall upon them. So we have been asking government to come and help us and break the wave and save our livelihood and businesses.
All right, so thank you so much, Chidi, for talking to News Central TV. Well, blessings, this is the much that we can take right now. I will try and go ahead and speak to other community members at this point in time, but the threat here is real. The people are calling out for help, and this water that you see might be even much farther when we return here, maybe in a few weeks' time. Blessings.
All right, Israel Everobo, thank you for the update. News Central continues to spotlight these issues, and we hope that something is done so that the community is not wiped out entirely. Now to election matters. Nigeria's electoral umpire, INEC, has kicked off the nationwide continuous voter registration exercise. Now, the commission is urging citizens to take advantage of the opportunity to be part of the electoral process ahead of the 2027 general election. Now, according to INEC, eligible Nigerians can begin their registration online via the portal before the physical exercise commences on the 25th of August 2025. The Commission cautioned against multiple registrations, warning that offenders face stiff penalties. INEC also reaffirmed its commitment to inclusive participation and pledged that every eligible voter will have the chance to register ahead of the polls. Still talking elections, meanwhile, the Independent National Electoral Commission says it will soon publish the list of political associates shortlisted for registration as political parties. INEC's National Commissioner, Sam Olumekun, confirmed that over 151 groups submitted applications through a newly created portal, though many failed to meet the Commission's basic guidelines. Now, he said screening has already begun, with only qualifying associations moving to the next stage. The final list will be released after the August 16 by-elections. Now, some of the proposed party names include the Obedient People's Party, Key of Freedom Party, and the Africa Reformation Party. Now, INEC also stressed that all applications are undergoing strict legal and procedural checks before approval is granted. Again, we're still talking elections. The new Nigeria People's Party has rejected the results of the by-election for the Sanyawa Gari constituency of the Kano State Assembly, accusing the Independent National Electoral Commission of rigging the poll in connivance with the State All Progressives Congress. Now, the chairman of the party in the state, Hashimu Dungurawa, made this known to newsmen while giving an update on the just concluded by-elections held in the state. Dungurawa accused the electoral body of subverting the will of the citizens in favor of the candidate of the All Progressives Congress.
As people are aware that the Gari local government, the election was conducted peacefully at the 10 polling units, but in a way of manipulation by some unpatriotic politicians who combined with INEC officials post-declaration of the APC candidate as the winner. In ideal circumstances, elections supposed to be declared at the election center within the constituency, but INEC decides to make a declaration at its headquarters at the state capital, which gives room for the unpatriotic politician to combine with INEC, and cancel all the polling units in contention and revert back to the old election result.
We've still got more election stories to share with you, but in the meantime, we go on a short break. It's still the 12 report. When we come back, more stories. Stay with us. As you know, the All Progressives Congress has rejected the outcome of the Anambra South senatorial by-election, alleging that its candidate, Azuka Okwosa, was held hostage during the poll. The Independent National Electoral Commission declared Emmanuel Nwachukwu of the All Progressives Grand Alliance as winner of the election. But APC State Chairman Basil Ejidike claimed Okwosa was confined to his home by members of the Anambra Vigilance Group. He further accused the state government official of mobilizing the local security outfit, Agune Chimba, to resist or restrict APC candidates in Osumenyi during the exercise. Still not done with electoral matters, the Lagos chapter of the All Progressives Congress is now celebrating victory in Saturday's by-elections across 16 federal and state constituencies. The party says the outcome reaffirms its dominance and boosts its chances ahead of the 2027 general elections. Now, APC secured 12 of the contested seats, including the Edo Central senatorial seat, the House seats in Kaduna, Jigawa, Ogun, and Edo, as well as several state assembly positions. The party credited its success to the performance of President Bola Tinubu's administration, pointing to gains in economic stability, security, infrastructure, and fiscal reforms. And while the PDP picked up a single seat in Oyo, the NNPP retained one in Kano, and APGA or APGA won two in Anambra. The APC maintained overall control. Now, to further discuss the just concluded by-elections, I'm joined by Oluwafemi John Adebayo, the head research and strategy K-Impact Development Initiative. Now, Oluwafemi John Adebayo, thank you so much for joining us to discuss this very important.
Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, we understand that the APC secured 12 contestants. Said the House sits in Kaduna, Jigawa, Ogun, as well as Edo, and even several state assembly positions. Now, it's now beginning to seem like a one-party state at the end of the day. You know that there have been speculations about, the one-party rule, whether or not we're still going to have the multi-party system, which equals democracy. What is your take on that?
Well, I think election is a contest. I think election is a process of competition where people put forward what they think in terms of their manifesto, what they want to do for the people. As for by-elections, which is majorly and predominantly legislative process, where people talk about how they represent their constituent, deeply, and give them quality representation at the seat of power, the National Assembly or the state houses of assembly, and by and large, election has come and gone. I think for me, it's the aspect of what went down in the elections, right? Whichever party that claims victory in the elections, it's all about what actually went down in the elections. How did they claim the victory? How did the process? How is it transparent? How is it credible? Now, if at the end of the day, every single Nigerian or voter, right, regarding this particular process can say that, these elections, they are free, fair, and credible, then whosoever or whatsoever party or which of the parties that claimed victory, for me, it doesn't matter. It shows that that's what the people wanted. But the question then becomes, in the last by-elections, the 16th August by-elections, the question still remains where can citizens, can Nigerians claim that the elections were utterly transparent? Was it free? Was it fair? Was it credible? I think for me, that will be the question. That will be what it is. So in terms of dominance of a single party, I think it's all about our political culture. I think it's all about how the polity in Nigeria has been, or is going to evolve going forward, right? To just speak specifically to the aspect of the dominance of a single party in elections or a system of governance where there have been conversation around one party state and the likes. For me, I think it's a thought on the fact that a single party state will most likely not be the best for a democracy in a time like this in Nigeria. So if you look at some of the indices that have happened, for instance, for the ruling party, there has been so much claim on the fact that, the ruling party is even using the instrument of the state to coerce the people. There have been thoughts like that. There have been people that are making such a comment. But for me, the question still remains, in terms of the opposition, how are they strong? How are they putting their house in order to be strong enough to be able to actually play the role of an opposition, which Nigeria also needs critically? Because both the citizens, the civil society, needs to
interrupting. Yeah, I just want to find out. It's one thing for the other parties to put their house in order, right? But it's another thing for the people, the citizens that actually matter the most in this equation, to perceive a one-party system, which will then equal voter apathy. So do you think that we're looking at a worst case of voter apathy come 2027 because people already have speculations and are even perceiving the possibility of one-party ruling?
All indices in our elections from 2003 has been showing a downward trend of voter participation. And if you look at it across all of the obstacles, as we move into obstacle elections based on year by year basis, voter turnout continue to reduce. I can say based on data, to forecast in terms of voter turnout in 2027 is going to be lower than what we have in 2023, which is really abysmal. 2023 is about 26%. And if we're going towards 2027, and all indices and data are actually showing that it will be lower, that means we're looking at something around maybe a bit above 20% or maybe 22, 23, which is not healthy. It's not showing a sign that our democracy is actually advancing or growing. Now, there are so much of things responsible for this. The first question we need to also ask ourselves is the credibility, the quality of the voters register that we have. Just before we started this conversation, I heard, when you were talking about some of the processes of the elections, the CVR, I heard and I listened when you were talking about INEC had started CVR again, right, for the general, for the whole of the country, across the country. Now the question becomes this: as the register we have already, is it clean? Do we have a quality register that is not over bloated? What about the people that are no longer in Nigeria, that have relocated? Yes, they are Nigerians, but do we realize, or do we put the consciousness that we don't have diaspora voting at this moment in Nigeria, right? What about people that are going to be on essential duty on the election day? In 2023 alone, INEC as a commission, as an institution of the state, deployed over 1.5 million Nigerians that are eligible voters, but because they are on essential duty, the duty...
Okay, Oluwafemi, unfortunately we're losing your audio, but thank you so much for your pivotal contribution to this very important discourse. And like I always like to say, 2027 is around the corner, and we're going to see how this pans out. Thank you so much. Now, it's still the 12 reports. When we come back, the digital scene is no longer safe for cybercrime as Nigeria is cracking down heavily on fraudsters. You might want to stick around for this story. Stay with us. It's still the 12 reports. Thanks for staying with us. And now to the cyberspace. The Nigerian Immigration Service, alongside the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, has begun deporting foreign nationals convicted of cyber terrorism and Ponzi scheme offenses. On Sunday, 42 of the 192 Chinese and Philippine nationals convicted by the Federal High Court in Lagos were deported. These individuals were part of a larger group of 759 arrested during a December 10, 2024 EFCC raid in Victoria Island, Lagos. Now, all convicts have completed their jail terms and were handed over for deportation. The syndicate operated large-scale cyber fraud and used fake identities. Still speaking of terror, the Northern Ethnic Youth Group Assembly, NEGA, has praised National Security Advisor Malam Nuhu Ribadu for confirming the capture of two top leaders of the terrorist groups in Nigeria. Now, the NSA had, at a press conference on Saturday in Abuja, formally announced the capture of the leadership of the Ansaru terrorist organization, Nigeria's Al-Qaeda affiliate, and the Mahmudawa terrorist group. The announcement revealed the detention of Amir Mahmoud Muhammad Usman Abu Bara of Ansaru and the deputy Amir of the Mahmudawa group. The operation, led by the Department of State Services, DSS, followed weeks of intelligence gathering. Now, NEGA also commended the DSS leadership for their discreet and effective approach, highlighting past successful covert operations under the current DSS Director General. Now, the National Youth Council of Ogoni People says oil production in Ogoni land will not resume unless there is justice, equity, and full involvement of Ogoni youths and women. Now, speaking at an event marking the 35th anniversary of the Ogoni Bill of Rights, the council accused the government and oil companies of neglect, citing ongoing environmental degradation and political exclusion despite decades of oil exploration. They insist that full consultation and equity participation must be guaranteed before operations can resume on Ogoni's OML 11 oil field. The group also urged President Bola Tinubu to address rising security threats from armed herdsmen in that region. In addition, they demanded fair political appointments and called for Ogoni representation in Rivers State governorship race. The House of Representatives is set to inaugurate an ad hoc committee on flood management and response. The committee is expected to provide oversight and make far-reaching recommendations that could guide government policy in tackling the recurring menace of flooding across Nigeria. The new committee will be inaugurated today amid high expectations as citizens hope for concrete measures to mitigate the devastating impact of floods nationwide. For more on this, we now cross over to Joseph Idong, who will give us more update on this. Idong, Joseph, what more can you tell us about the inauguration that is set to happen today, if it hasn't started already?
Well, the inauguration is supposed to start by 10 a.m., but now it has been shifted till 2 p.m. And it is one that is bringing together all stakeholders under one umbrella. We understand that flooding has been an issue that has devastated so many communities. Because we recall the incidents in Niger State, Mokwa, where several lives were destroyed, homes destroyed, and even businesses were destroyed. And even the one in Yola and just recently, we saw what flooding did to some communities in Lagos State. And so recently, it has been a fragmented approach to addressing this issue. But now, the House is about to inaugurate a committee that will bring together all stakeholders to brainstorm and find solutions, long-lasting solutions to the consistent issue of flood across the country. For now, it has not started, scheduled by 2, which is hoped to start by that time.
So how significant is this new committee in the broader fight against flooding in Nigeria? Is it very relevant? And what are measures that are being put in place to ensure follow-up execution of whatever plans that they have?
Well, this committee is very significant, just as I stated. Formally, it used to be a fragmented approach to address this issue. But now, they are bringing together all stakeholders. They've invited several stakeholders to come together to attend the inauguration ceremony, and at the course of its dealings in finding solutions to this, they will be inviting other stakeholders, even from the state and also environmental activists, to come together and share what they feel is the issue and how to prevent it, and look for long-lasting solutions, not the usual ritual where we see after flooding palliatives are being given to communities affected. Now it's going to bring together stakeholders under one umbrella to find a solution to this. And beyond just emergency response, the House this committee is also going to be looking at pushing for policies that will help in addressing this issue once and for all.
You see, Joseph, the problem that a lot of citizens have is that distrust, and that cannot be easily taken away, because there's always something that I like to call a pipeline hijack. It starts from the top, but it doesn't necessarily flow down to the bottom. What are the measures put in place to ensure that this time around, it's not just mere say, they don't just talk about plans and then it doesn't reflect in the lives of the citizens that they're actually planning for?
Well, it is the hope of citizens that the work of this committee is not just going to be on paper, but there should be a political will to follow up. But for now, we don't know the measures put in place. Until this committee starts, then we can ask those questions to know what the measures that will be put in place to ensure that these are sustained and political will are followed up with whatever recommendations they are coming up with. But for now, we'll just wait for the committee to start and tell us what they plan to do. And if they don't answer these questions, then we should ask them what measures they are going to put in place to ensure sustainability, that flooding, the field of flooding is needed once and for all.
All right, thank you, Idong Joseph, for the update. We'll get back to that once the committee commences full-time. Now, rescue teams are searching for dozens of passengers feared missing after a boat capsized in Sokoto State on Sunday morning. Authorities say that the boat, which was carrying more than 50 people at a local market, overturned mid-journey. The National Emergency Management Agency confirmed that only 10 survivors have been pulled out of the water so far. Boat accidents are a recurring tragedy during Nigeria's rainy season, often linked to overcrowding, poor maintenance, and weak enforcement of safety rules. This latest incident comes after similar deadly mishaps, including the loss of 16 farmers last August and 6 schoolgirls in July. Now, NEMA says rescue efforts are ongoing with the support of local authorities and volunteers as anxious families await word on their missing loved ones. Now, in Kharkiv community, on the outskirts of Nigeria's capital, Abuja, like many other satellite communities, young people are facing rising challenges, ranging from drug abuse to teenage pregnancy and school dropout, which have become a growing concern for many residents. Now, stepping in with a different approach, one local foundation is using mentorship and empowerment to help teenagers, especially young girls, make better life choices. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, has more on this report.
Drug abuse, teenage pregnancy, and school dropouts remain some of the toughest social problems confronting young people in satellite communities bordering the Federal Capital Territory. And the Kharkiv satellite community is not an exemption, as it faces its own fair share of these challenges.
Growing up in this community, I've been able to see a lot of challenges, a lot of problems, and these are things that, we always say, if you cannot solve all the problems of Nigeria, you cannot solve every single problem, but at least you can solve a problem.
While government interventions often seem slow and limited, several civil society groups are stepping in to close the gap.
What I am trying to solve in my community is to inspire, is to mentor, is to equip the young girls in my community, especially those who maybe are pregnant as teenagers or have had a baby before.
At a recent mentoring seminar for teenage boys and girls at the Kharkiv community, stakeholders say there's a need for a reorientation through adequate information, capacity building, and empowerment of these young citizens.
A whole lot of these young people that you're seeing here are people whose parents don't have an idea of what education is like and what it should be like. And we think that we should not lose these younger people to, staying out of, the path of education.
People are looking out for value, and if you're a youth without value in present-day Nigeria, then nobody will look out for you. So you need to build yourself, you need to develop yourself personally in terms of skills and in terms of your relationship with people.
They emphasized that ending school dropouts, teenage pregnancies, and other vices should be the focus of family, the community, and the governments.
One thing I would say is that we owe the next generation a situation whereby we do not leave them handicapped.
So in the whole of Kharkiv Chiefdom, His Royal Highness is behind this program. He's in full support. In any child that needs support or encouragement can always come also to the palace, even after this event.
While every choice counts for these young Nigerians, the right choices today can shape a better tomorrow. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Now to a bit of business. Nigeria's manufacturers are turning inward as naira volatility and forex scarcity disrupt supply chains. This reality is forcing firms to embrace local raw materials. A Financial Times report notes that the central bank's floating of the naira under President Bola Tinubu's reforms triggered sharp currency swings, leaving manufacturers scrambling for input. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria said about 800 companies shut down in 2024 due to high costs and dollar shortages. Now, multinationals like P&G, Unilever, and GSK have scaled back operations, while survivors such as Chemical and Allied Products are shifting strategies. CAP's CEO said the crisis accelerated moves to reduce import dependence. Now, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, has urged taxpayers to resist concealing transactions following the launch of the National E-Invoice Solution merchant buyer model, which enhances real-time transaction monitoring. Speaking at a two-day post-launch workshop for large taxpayers in Lagos, FIRS Acting Director Tax Automation, Mike Adoga, explained that the system replaces paper and electronic invoices with a digital format capturing supplier and buyer details, item descriptions, quantities, prices, taxes, and totals included. Now, he noted that every invoice will now receive a reference number, ensuring transparency and seamless administration. Adoga emphasized that the initiative aims to strengthen compliance and simplify tax governance. Now, the WAGL Energy Limited, a joint venture between NNPC Limited and Sahara Group, has expanded its fleet capacity to over 160,000 cubic meters, reinforcing its position as a leading LPG supplier in Africa. In July 2024, WAGL secured an O&M agreement for the Escravo crude oil terminal in Delta. Earlier in May 2022, the JV took delivery of two 23,000 CBM LPG vessels, MT Barum and MT Sapet, raising investments to over $300 million, part of a $1 billion infrastructure commitment by 2026. Now, this expansion supports Nigeria's goal of reaching 5 million metric tons LPG consumption by 2025. Now, the Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria, ALTON, has warned that hostile state policies such as excessive levies and right-of-way restrictions could exclude some regions from the ongoing telecom investment boom. ALTON chairman, Engineer Gbenga Adebayo, said over $1 billion in fresh infrastructure investment has entered the sector in 2025, driven by policy reforms and tariff adjustments of up to 50%. He noted telecom expansion is accelerating post-COVID, but states what unfriendly policies risk poor connectivity and job losses. Now, Adebayo also praised federal reforms to reduce over 56 taxes and urged public support to prevent infrastructure vandalism. We're still staying with business. Asking prices for newly advertised homes in Britain fell 1.3% between July 13 and August 9, according to property website Rightmove. The decline is attributed to the usual midsummer slowdown, which is less sleep than in the previous 2 months. Meanwhile, sales in July reached their highest level for the month since 2020. Annually, prices rose 0.3%. Rightmove's Colin Babcock noted sellers were increasingly competing on price, with a third of homes seeing cuts, the second highest level since 2012. Despite 5 Bank of England rate cuts since August 2024, mortgage costs remain sticky. Now to stories outside the continent. An attack by the Allied Democratic Forces ADF, an Islamic State-linked group, has killed at least 9 people in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. The overnight assault targeted the town of Oicha, involving looting of shops and arson of homes. The victims included 8 civilians and a police officer. The ADF, primarily composed of Muslim Ugandan fighters, has been active in the region since the mid-1990s and is responsible for thousands of deaths. The attack was reportedly retaliation for ongoing military operations. Despite warnings from local civil groups, security forces had taken no preventive measures. Now, the family of the late former Zambian president, Edgar Lungu, is back in court as the legal battle over his burial continues. The Pretoria High Court has adjourned the family's application for leave to appeal against an earlier ruling ordering his repatriation for a state funeral following his death on the 5th of June 2025. Now, instead of waiting for the outcome, the family has taken the matter further, turning to the Constitutional Court. They are seeking a direct appeal against the full bench judgment, which upheld the Zambian government's right to repatriate the former president for an official state burial. Now, for more on today's court proceedings, we cross over now to our correspondent, Bongani Ziba, who will give us more updates on that. Bongani, it seems like there is no end to this matter. What more can you tell us about today's proceedings?
Absolutely blessings, but the question is, what does the ruling today means? This means that the court has postponed the hearing indefinitely without setting a date for resumption. The contention, or rather I say the dispute relating to this burial site for the former Zambian President Lungu, we have seen it back and forth in courts. The family argues that the court did not respect their wishes for the funeral not to be presided over by President Hakainde Hichilema. And we know that blessings in the hearing, the family through its lawyer Tembeka Itobi requested for adjournment last Friday, informing the court that the discussions were underway with the Zambian government. The family lawyer also said both parties had agreed to stand down the application until today, and that the court will be informed if the talks succeeds. So, however, later that very same day, the family filed an urgent application in the Constitutional Court of South Africa seeking to overturn the High Court's decision to allow the repatriation for the state funeral. But in the affidavit, the former First Lady Esther Lungu argued that no one should be compelled to bury their loved ones according to how the state detects. So far, this means that the order cannot be implemented until it's concluded. But blessings, let's also look at the Zambian constitution, which states that the interest and the state protocols often take precedence in the matters concerning the burial of its leaders. And historically, all the former Zambian presidents have been laid at the Embassy Park, a site that is dedicated to honoring their service to the nation. However, the question now, blessing, is the family's interest overriding the national interest? We look at the case of Zambia's president, that is former President Kenneth Kaunda, whose family also did not want him to be buried at the Embassy Park, but Edgar Lungu, that is the president then, forced him to be buried there despite different opinions from his family and the public. So this raises broader questions about the balance between individual and family rights over the national interest. Should the Zambian government prioritize the protocol, or should it respect the wishes of the family and that of the citizens, especially when the person saved as saved the nation? So blessings, we continue to keep a tab on this story for our viewers, but for now it's over back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Wangani Siziba, for the update on that. Between former U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian leader Vladimir Putin in Alaska. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning urged all parties engaged in the peace talks in Washington to reach an agreement swiftly. Beijing also criticized Germany after its foreign minister accused China of increasing aggression in the Asia-Pacific. Mao warned Berlin against fueling confrontation and heightening regional tensions. Meanwhile, Trump ruled out Ukraine reclaiming Crimea or joining NATO, but said both Washington and Moscow had pledged robust security guarantees for Kyiv during early negotiations.
中方支持一切有利于和平解决危机的努力，乐见俄美双方保持接触，改善彼此关系，推动乌克兰危机的政治解决进程。要维护台海和平稳定，就必须旗帜鲜明地坚持一个中国原则，反对台独分裂行径。当前东海、南海局势总体保持稳定，我们敦促有关方尊重地区国家。
Now listen to this. Nigeria has been called the world's malaria capital, and not without reason. Our country alone accounts for more than a quarter of global malaria cases and about a third of all malaria deaths. But behind the gloom, there is a silent revolution happening in how we test and treat malaria, and I'm talking about right here in Nigeria. For decades, Nigeria depended on international donors for malaria treatment, vaccines, and the likes. HIV test kits included. Now, that lifeline was cut in 2023 when US aid pulled funding, and I'm sure you can remember. But this year, Nigeria's WHO licensed diagnostics factory opened a facility near Lagos, producing 147 million rapid test kits annually, with room to scale beyond 160 million. Now that's massive. For once, our diagnostic supply chain is in Nigerians' hands. The numbers tell a story. In Oyo State, malaria test positivity dropped from 71% in 2021 to 53% by 2023 at primary health centers. Secondary facilities fell from 40% to just 18%, as you can see. And in Kano, training frontline health workers meant that in certain facilities, not a single death from severe malaria has been recorded since this program began. The company is aiming to source all components domestically within the next 5 years. But here's the concern. Many in other parts of Lagos are yet to hear about it. Talk more of across the nation. So on one hand, Nigeria is finally producing its own malaria test kits at scale. And on the other hand, still battling the same old problems of access, accuracy, and uneven healthcare coverage. A nation racing toward a malaria-free Nigeria by 2025, with 2025 already here. Testing is progress, yes, but the progress can be a little faster considering the statistics. But so far, thanks to local innovation and health worker resilience, Nigerians, the children and adults alike, still have a fighting chance. And a strong one at that. Baby steps, as they always say. Well, that said, Nigeria's the Tigers advanced to the quarterfinals of the 2025 FIBA AfroBasket after defeating Cameroon 99-90 in their final group game on Sunday in Angola. Now, both teams entered the decisive clash with 2 wins each, but Nigeria dominated after an early Cameroonian lead and then went on to finish off the game. And we'll quickly hear about this from Udoka Njoku. Udoka, are you ready for us?
Very much blessings. Of course, this is the malaria of sports because football kicked off this weekend and we look forward to more exciting activities. But for the Tigers, indeed, they're in the next round of the tournament and on the verge of claiming yet again a peace on the African continent. I'll give you more updates on the show In the Game on New Central TV.
Most definitely. Well, like you've heard, stick around for In the Game because you'll be getting more on that information. And remember, you may send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number showing on the screen very soon. We want to see what you see. Do well to follow us across all socials. We are at News Central TV. And of course, watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Avo TV, Go TV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, and live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Blessings Musugu.